Hi, I'm Luz, and I'm going to be 34 this year. After finishing college, I got a job at a big company that many people know about. They paid me a good amount of money, especially for someone new to the job, but it meant I had to travel a lot for work and often had to do extra hours. Even on holidays, it was tough, but I liked feeling like I was doing something important. When I was 28, I got promoted to be in charge of a whole department, which was pretty cool, especially since it's not common for women to move up that quickly. About 4 years ago, I got married to my boyfriend, Brian. We've been together for 2 years after meeting through a friend. I wasn't really thinking about getting into a relationship, but my friend thought it was a good idea to introduce us. I never really imagined myself getting married or having kids, but Brian was really keen on it. He said he wanted to get married soon and have kids before we got too old. I wasn't ready for that at all. I had just gotten promoted, and the idea of getting married and having kids felt too rushed. So whenever Brian brought it up, I told him we needed more time to know each other better and that marriage meant thinking about more than just the two of us. Brian then suggested, okay, let's wait 2 years before getting married. By then, we'll really know each other right. At first, I didn't think we'd last that long, but surprisingly, we did end up dating for 2 years before tying the knot. Throughout our relationship, Brian was loyal, didn't have any gambling habits, and always treated me kindly and sincerely. I admired his strong work ethic and how he always put effort into everything he did. But there was one thing that bothered me a bit: his big ego. Whenever someone at work, especially a senior, pointed out his mistakes, he'd come home ranting about how he didn't need to be told what to do and that he always thought his way was the best. Listening to him, it was obvious that he was being criticized for his errors, but it seemed like he couldn't handle being corrected, whether it came from a superior or not. When we decided to have a dinner with both our families to celebrate, Brian chose a really expensive restaurant that cost over $200 per person. He then asked me to split the bill with him because it was so pricey. I suggested going somewhere cheaper, but Brian insisted, saying it was important to make a good impression. I felt frustrated because it seemed like he was worried people would think he was cheap if we went somewhere less fancy. I thought to myself, if he's worried about that, he should pay for all himself. But Brian explained that his salary couldn't cover the whole bill for 8 people, maybe just 3 at most. So he asked me to cover the remaining 5, meaning I had to pay more than half. It didn't seem fair to me, especially since we were both bringing 4 people from each of our families, totaling 8. Brian wanted us to go to a restaurant that was expensive, but he couldn't even cover his own family's part of the bill. I wasn't happy when Brian suggested the expensive dinner plan, and I was even more confused when he announced to everyone at the dinner that he would pay for everything. Although I had doubts, everyone seemed pleased, so I decided to go along with it and let him take charge. But looking back, I think I might have made a mistake. I regret not reconsidering my marriage. After we got married, his behavior towards me changed completely. He started talking down to me all the time. Before we tied the knot, he promised to help with household chores since I was busy with work. But once we were married, he said things like, "What would people think if they see a man doing laundry? That's a woman's job. I work hard outside, so I deserve to relax at home." He never lifted a finger to help, no matter how busy I was. His attitude annoyed me, but I could handle doing the housework. What really bothered me was that Brian was sending all his money to his parents, even though they were farmers and struggling to make ends meet. It seemed like Brian was their sole financial support. Within 6 months of getting married, he stopped contributing any money to our household expenses and gave everything to his parents. I once told Brian, "It's not fair for me to cover all our living expenses with my salary alone." But he argued back, saying, "How can you say that when my family needs help? They're your family too. Plus, you make more money than me, so you should be fine." He didn't listen to my concerns. When he talked to his parents on the phone, he'd reassure them, saying, "Don't worry, I'm taking care of everything with my salary. I won't let Louise interfere." But the truth was he was giving them all his money. He had nothing left for himself and started asking me for pocket money, saying, "Can you give me about $200? I can't even afford lunch. I reached a breaking point and suggested, let's set a monthly limit on how much we send to your parents. You need to figure out how to cover your own expenses. Brian would agree, but he kept sending all this salary to his parents. That was something I couldn't tolerate anymore. One day I had to go on a business trip for about 2 weeks. What about my food and laundry for 2 weeks? Even though Brian knew my job required frequent travel, feeling annoyed at his immaturity, I told him, figure it out yourself. You're an adult. If you can't handle it, why don't you go stay with your parents while I'm away? You'll be fine there, right? Brian reluctantly agreed. When I returned home 2 weeks later, I found Brian's sister Elizabeth there. She lived a bit far from us, and we hadn't seen each other since our wedding day. I wondered why she was there, and Elizabeth, seeing my expression, said, "Hi, Louise, it's been a while." "Oh, right, about the money? It was a big help." "Thank you so much," she smiled brightly, saying things that didn't make sense to me. Without even unpacking, I asked Elizabeth, "What money? What are you talking about?" She replied without hesitation, Brian said that since you had some savings, he'd give me money for my business startup. He assured me not to worry because you had at least $1 million. I was completely baffled. Just then, Brian walked in, holding my bank passbook and seal. When he saw my expression, he said, "Oh, welcome back. Perfect timing. I'm going to give your savings to Elizabeth. You know she's a nail artist, right? She's been wanting to open her own shop. She's been saving up, but she's still short about $1 million. I remember that you've had savings since before we were married. Exactly $1 million. So I told her she could have it. With a smile, he handed the passbook and seal to Elizabeth, saying, "You're lucky. This will help make your dream come true. Show some gratitude, okay?" I couldn't hold back anymore. I snapped, "What are you talking about? That's my money. Why are you deciding this on your own? I could understand if you said you'd lend it. We need a legal agreement and a plan to pay it back, right? You can't just give away someone else's savings without any discussion." I grabbed the passbook and seal back from Elizabeth. Brian looked at me and said, "What? We're family, aren't we? It's silly to make legal agreements with family members. Plus, we're not lending it, we're giving it. You never spend any of your money because you're always working, right? It's a waste to just hoard it. Elizabeth has a dream. Isn't it more meaningful to use it to help her?" Then he gave me a stern look. Upon hearing Brian's words, I realized that he was impossible to reason with. I felt like continuing the conversation was pointless. But then Brian dropped a bombshell. "This money is too good for you, so I'm giving it to Elizabeth. You'd only waste it. You can just work and save up again. Understand? If you still want to argue, we get divorced." Seeing this as an opportunity, an idea struck me. Without hesitation, I replied, "Fine, let's get a divorce. I'll prepare the papers and send them to you. I'll come collect my things soon. Until the divorce is final, I'll stay at a hotel. Goodbye for now." With that, I grabbed my luggage from the business trip and swiftly left the house. Brian was shocked by my sudden decision. Soon after, he bombarded me with texts, begging me to come back and even saying that Elizabeth would forgive me if I gave her the money. I ignored all his messages. Who does he think he is? The next day, I went to the city hall and sent the signed divorce papers. Back home, despite Brian's protests, the divorce was finalized quicker than I had anticipated. A week after the divorce was official, I waited until Brian was at work and then moved my belongings to my new house. In his texts about the divorce papers, Brian had been rude, calling me names and saying we were now strangers. So I decided not to take most of the furniture and appliances from our old home. Instead, I deposited half of the small savings I had accumulated during our marriage into his bank account and left it there. That night, I received numerous calls from both Brian and Elizabeth. At first, I ignored them, knowing what they were about. But eventually, I answered, and Brian immediately started shouting, demanding to know why there was only $800 in the account. I calmly replied, "I split the property as we agreed. We originally had $1,600 in our joint account, right? So I left you with half of it, which is $800. And since all the furniture and appliances were bought after we got married, I left them behind. That's fair, isn't it? Just to clarify, I ended up with less than Brian, but he wasn't convinced. He insisted, "You're supposed to have $1 million in savings, right? So half of that, $500,000, should be mine. Plus, you got an inheritance from your grandfather, right? Half of that should be mine too." I was stunned and couldn't help but laugh. I had seen this coming. Otherwise, Brian wouldn't have agreed to the divorce so easily. Trying to hold back my laughter, I explained to Brian the division of property only applies to assets acquired during the marriage. My savings from before we were married and the inheritance I received aren't part of that. I consulted a lawyer and I divided our marital assets fairly. And remember, all the money we saved during our marriage was actually earned by me. You never contributed to our expenses, so be thankful I divided that. Brian accused me of lying, saying, "That can't be true. You're trying to trick me. Give me what's rightfully mine, or I'll sue you." He yelled desperately, but I remained calm and replied, "If you want to sue me, go ahead. I've been fair and I haven't deceived you. I'm not afraid of being sued." Hearing this, Brian panicked and said, "Wait, let's forget the divorce." I was wrong. "Please come back to me." He completely changed his tune and begged for reconciliation. I responded firmly, "The divorce is finalized, and I have no intention of reconsidering. This is serious." Then I informed him, "If you plan on staying in our old place, you'll have to cover the rent yourself. It's about $1,800 per month, which you probably didn't realize because you've never paid it." Brian weakly admitted, "I can't afford that. If he can't pay, then it's his problem." After that, it seems Brian moved back in with his parents because he couldn't afford the rent. Unable to cover the moving costs, Brian sold the furniture and appliances I left behind. His parents thought Brian was making good money and welcomed him back, thinking it would make their lives easier. But without my income, Brian couldn't support them as much as before, and it seems he's struggling to adjust to living there. It seems Elizabeth's plans for her business were affected since she couldn't access any of my savings. She had to stop her preparations, causing her a lot of frustration. Brian also faced difficulties from Elizabeth, but that's not my concern anymore. I'm concentrating on my work and enjoying living independently. I've had my fill of marriage. Brian still sends messages expressing his desire to reconcile, but I ignore them completely. It's almost amusing to hear him update me on his situation from time to time, so I've let it slide. However, I'm planning to block him soon.
"You're too naive to manage this wealth." Amanda's words cut through the air as she stood in my living room, her designer purse clutched tightly against her cream blazer. "I did you a favor, Sarah. That land was just sitting there doing nothing." I stared at the documents scattered across my coffee table, my hands trembling as I processed what my sister-in-law had just confessed. The 50-acre property my grandfather had left me, the beautiful Montana wilderness I planned to preserve, had been sold without my knowledge or consent. And Amanda, my husband Tom's sister, was standing here acting like she'd done me a service. "You forged my signature," I said, picking up one of the papers, my voice steadier than I felt. "You actually forged my signature to sell property that wasn't yours." Amanda rolled her eyes, adjusting her perfectly styled blonde hair. "Oh please, it's not like you were doing anything with it. Do you know how many developers have been trying to buy that land? $1.5 million is a fantastic offer. I've already processed the sale." The casual way she admitted to her crime made my blood boil. I'd never been close to Amanda. She'd made it clear from the day I married Tom that she thought he could do better than a small-town librarian. But this was beyond anything I'd expected, even from her. "Where's the money?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Her smirk told me everything. "Being put to better use. I've invested it in some promising ventures. Once they pay off, everyone will thank me." "You clearly don't understand how to handle this kind of wealth." I thought about my grandfather's face when he'd shown me that land 5 years ago, just months before he passed. He'd walked me through the pristine forest, pointing out the rare birds nesting in the ancient trees, showing me the crystal-clear stream that cut through the property. "This land is special, Sarah," he'd said. It needs someone who'll protect it, not exploit it. He'd chosen me over my more successful cousins because he knew I shared his love for preservation. Now I failed him, let his legacy be stripped away by my greedy sister-in-law. Where's Tom? I asked, realizing my husband was conspicuously absent from this conversation. Oh, don't drag him into this, Amanda waved dismissively. He knows nothing about it, and let's keep it that way. He's always been too soft when it comes to you. I stood up, gathering the papers carefully. You really think I'm just going to let this go? For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross Amanda's face. What's done is done, Sarah. The sale's been processed. The developers are already planning their project. You can't stop progress. We'll see about that, I replied, pulling out my phone. Who are you calling? Amanda demanded, her composure cracking slightly. First my lawyer, then the police. Forging documents and selling property fraudulently are serious crimes, Amanda. She stepped forward, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You wouldn't dare. Think about what this would do to the family. To Tom, to our parents. I met her gaze steadily. You should have thought about that before you stole my inheritance. I did not steal, she started, but I cut her off. Get out of my house, Amanda. The next time we speak, it'll be through lawyers. She grabbed her purse, her knuckles white with tension. You're making a huge mistake. I was trying to help you. That land was wasted on someone like you. As she stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I sank back onto the couch. My hands were shaking as I dialed my lawyer's number. I'd known Amanda was entitled and manipulative, but this level of betrayal was staggering. The land wasn't just property to me, it was my grandfather's legacy, his final gift. He trusted me to protect it, and somehow, I let him down. But as I listened to the phone ring, I felt a determination settle over me. This wasn't over. Amanda thought I was naive, too soft to fight back. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. My lawyer answered on the third ring. Sarah, what's wrong? I took a deep breath, straightening the papers in front of me. I need your help, David. My sister-in-law just admitted to forging my signature and selling my inherited property, and I want to press charges. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls and documentation. David confirmed my worst fears. The sale had indeed been processed, and the developers were already moving forward with their plans. But he also gave me hope. With proof of forgery and fraud, we could fight this. As night fell, I sat in my darkened living room, waiting for Tom to come home. How would he react? Would he stand by me as I took legal action against his sister? Or would blood prove thicker than marriage? I heard his key in the lock, and my heart raced. This wasn't just about the land anymore. This was about justice, family, and standing up for what's right. Amanda thought she'd gotten away with it, thought I was too weak to fight back. Little did she know, she just started a war she wasn't prepared to win. The next morning, I sat in David's office, watching him review the security footage I'd quietly gathered over the past month. I hadn't been as naive as Amanda assumed. I'd noticed small things going missing from my home office, documents being slightly out of place. So I'd install cameras, telling no one. This is excellent, Sarah, David said, pausing the video that clearly showed Amanda rifling through my files late one night when she'd stopped by to drop off some of Tom's old mail. Between this and the forged documents, we have a solid case. Tom hadn't come home last night. After I told him what his sister had done, he'd stood in silence for a long moment before grabbing his keys and walking out. His only words, I need time to think. What's our next step? I asked, pushing thoughts of my marriage aside. I had to focus on the immediate problem. I've already filed for an emergency injunction to halt any development on the property, David replied, shuffling through papers on his desk. But we need to move fast. The developers have already started preliminary work. My phone buzzed. Another message from Amanda. The developers won't stop just because you're throwing a tantrum. Be reasonable. I showed David the text. He frowned, adding it to his growing file of evidence. She's getting nervous. Keep documenting everything. As if on cue, my phone rang. My mother-in-law, Margaret. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what she'd say. Sure enough, her message was exactly what I expected. Sarah, darling, we need to talk about this misunderstanding with Amanda. She was only trying to help. You know how passionate she is about real estate development. Can't we handle this within the family? I deleted the message, Margaret had always defended her daughter's actions, no matter how outrageous. When Amanda had borrowed my car last year and returned it with a massive dent, Margaret had suggested I should be grateful for the chance to buy a new one. David's assistant knocked on the door. "The detective is here." Detective Torres was a sharp-eyed woman who didn't waste time with pleasantries. She reviewed our evidence, asked pointed questions, and took detailed notes. "We'll need to interview Mrs. Patterson," she said, referring to Amanda. "This level of fraud usually indicates a pattern of behavior. Has she done anything similar before?" I thought about all the small incidents over the years, the borrowed items that were never returned, the misunderstandings about money, the way family heirlooms somehow ended up in her possession. "I should have seen this coming," I admitted. "She's always pushed boundaries, but I never thought she'd go this far." "They rarely start with the big crimes," Torres noted. "They build up to them." As we left the police station, my phone buzzed again. "Tom, can we talk?" We met at our favorite coffee shop, though neither of us ordered anything. Tom looked tired, his usually neat appearance disheveled. "Amanda says she can undo the sale," he said without preamble. "If you drop the charges." I studied my husband's face, the man I'd loved for 8 years. "Do you believe her?" He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know what to believe anymore. She's my sister, Sarah, my little sister." "And I'm your wife," I replied quietly. "She stole my inheritance, Tom. She forged my signature. She betrayed both of us. She says she was trying to help, that the land was just sitting there, that the development would benefit everyone. It wasn't hers to sell. The land was my grandfather's legacy, and she had no right to take that from me." Tom stared into his empty coffee cup. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to support me, to stand by me while I fight for what's right." His phone chimed. Probably Amanda or their mother. He didn't check it. "If you press charges," he said slowly, "it will tear the family apart." "Amanda did that when she committed fraud," I pointed out. "I'm just refusing to be her victim." He stood up abruptly. "I need more time." As I watched him leave, I realized something. This wasn't just about the land anymore. This was about every time I stayed quiet to keep the peace, every time I let Amanda's behavior slide to avoid conflict. It was about standing up for myself, even if it meant standing alone. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Torres. "Got some interesting information about other properties Mrs. Patterson has handled. Can you come in tomorrow?" I smiled grimly. Amanda had always thought she was the clever one, the sophisticated businesswoman, while I was just the quiet librarian who'd married into her family. She was about to learn that quiet didn't mean weak, and that some people were worth crossing. The war she'd started was just beginning, and I was done playing by her rules. Detective Torres spread the documents across her desk, each one revealing another piece of Amanda's carefully constructed facade. "Your sister-in-law has been busy," she said, pointing to a series of property transactions. "In the past 3 years, she's been involved in at least 5 suspicious sales. But this is the first time she's been careless enough to leave such clear evidence." I studied the papers, recognizing names of other family members and friends. Amanda had apparently made quite a career out of helping people manage their property, always to her own benefit. "We're bringing her in for questioning today," Torres continued. "Would you like to know something interesting? Those promising ventures she claimed to invest your money in, they don't exist." My phone buzzed. Margaret again. This time I answered. "Sarah, please," she began, her voice trembling. "Amanda's being taken to the police station. This is a nightmare. You have to drop the charges." "No, Margaret," I replied firmly. "I don't." "But she's pregnant," Margaret blurted out. "Think about your niece or nephew. Would you really send an expecting mother to jail?" I felt a cold anger settle over me. Is she really pregnant, Margaret? Or is this another one of her manipulations? The silence on the other end was telling. Later that afternoon, I sat in David's office as he delivered the news. The developers had withdrawn from the project after learning about the fraud investigation. The sale was being reversed. My grandfather's land would be returned to me. "But that's not all," David said, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Remember how we did a full audit of Amanda's finances? We found your $1.5 million. She never invested it. It's sitting in an offshore account along with money from her other deals." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "So it's over?" "Almost. Amanda's facing multiple fraud charges. She's trying to negotiate a plea deal, But with the evidence we have, he shrugged. She'll be lucky to avoid jail time. Tom was waiting outside my house when I got home. He looked different, older somehow, but also more resolute. I've been talking to some people, he said as I approached. Other victims of Amanda's help. I had no idea how long this had been going on. How many people she'd hurt. I unlocked the door, letting him follow me inside. I'm sorry, he continued. I should have stood by you from the start. She's my sister. I wanted to believe her. I know, I said softly, but sometimes the people we love aren't who we think they are. The family's in chaos. Mom's still trying to defend her. But Dad, he shook his head. Dad's looking into his own accounts now. Apparently, some of his retirement funds are missing. A week later, I stood on my grandfather's land, breathing in the crisp Montana air. The developers hadn't gotten far, just a few survey markers that could easily be removed. The stream still ran clear, the birds still nested in their ancient trees. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Local woman pleads guilty to multiple counts of fraud. Amanda's perfectly composed mugshot stared back at me. She didn't look so sophisticated now. Tom wrapped an arm around my shoulders. What are you going to do with the land now? I smiled, pulling out the paperwork I'd been working on. I'm turning it into a conservation trust. My grandfather always said this land needed protection. Now it'll have it, legally, permanently. He would be proud, Tom said quietly. You know what the funny thing is? I said, watching a pair of eagles soar overhead. Amanda always thought I was naive because I didn't want to develop this land. She never understood that some things are worth more than money. As we walked back to the car, I received one final text from Margaret. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family. I typed back a simple response. No, Margaret. Amanda did that. I just exposed the truth. Tom read the exchange over my shoulder and squeezed my hand. You know what? You're absolutely right. Standing there, with my grandfather's land secure and my husband by my side, I felt at peace. Amanda had thought she could take advantage of my quiet nature, my desire to keep the peace. Instead, she learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous when crossed. Her betrayal had cost her everything, her freedom, her reputation, her family's trust. Meanwhile, I had everything I needed. My inheritance, my integrity, and the knowledge that sometimes fighting back isn't just an option. It's a responsibility. The truth had won out, and that was worth more than any amount of money Amanda could have stolen. You're too sick to need it, Amanda said with a cruel laugh over the phone. I lay in my hospital bed, listening as her words cut deep. That money should go to someone who actually has a future. I looked at my phone and saw a notification from my banking app. $300,000 had been transferred from our family trust to an account I didn't recognize. My grandfather had set up that trust for both me and Amanda. It was supposed to be shared equally. My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 29 years old and fighting lymphoma, a serious type of cancer. While I was in the hospital, my sister-in-law, Amanda, saw an opportunity to steal my inheritance. You really think you can just take it all? I asked, keeping my voice calm even though I was furious. My IV drip made a steady beeping sound, helping me stay focused. It's already done, Amanda said smugly. Let's be honest, Olivia. You're stuck in that hospital bed and you probably won't make it. Why should the money go to waste? I glanced at my laptop. 3 months ago, I had emailed my family lawyer about this exact situation. Amanda had no idea that I had already taken steps to protect my share of the trust. I knew she had her eyes on that money for a long time. Well, good luck with that, I said before ending the call. Just then, my nurse Sarah walked in to check my vitals. She had been with me through 3 rounds of chemo and felt more like a friend now. Everything okay, honey? She asked. Just Amanda being Amanda, I replied with a small smile. Nothing I can't handle. And I meant it. Amanda had always been selfish and greedy. When I married her brother, David, she had tried to convince him that I was after the family's money. Now she was the one stealing. My phone buzzed again. This time it was David. Liv, what's going on? Amanda says she needed to use the trust fund for family emergencies. Put me on speaker, I said. I knew Amanda was right there with him. I want everyone to hear this. I heard some shuffling, then Amanda's voice in the background. She's just mad because I'm being practical. Practical? I laughed. You call stealing from a sick person practical? I didn't steal anything. Amanda snapped. The trust is for family, and I am family. Unlike you, I actually have plans for that money. Oh, I bet you do, I said, thinking about all the expensive bags and cars she had been posting on social media. But there's something you should know about that transfer you just made. What are you talking about? She asked, her tone suddenly unsure. Check your email. All of you. It should be arriving, right about now. I heard the sound of incoming emails, then silence. My lawyer was always on time. What? What is this? Amanda's voice had lost its confidence. That, I said, feeling satisfied, is a message from the Trust's Oversight Committee, the one I helped set up 3 months ago. Any unusual transfers have to be approved by all beneficiaries and the committee. If they aren't, they get reversed within 24 hours. More silence. Then David spoke. Liv, did you know she was going to do this? Let's just say I like to be prepared, I said, adjusting my pillow. Amanda isn't the first person to take advantage of a sick relative. This is ridiculous, Amanda shouted. I have rights to that money too. You have rights to your half, I corrected. But now, your half is frozen while they investigate you for fraud. They don't take kindly to people trying to steal from cancer patients. I could hear Amanda stuttering, trying to come up with an excuse. Then David said, I'm coming to the hospital. We need to talk. Bring Amanda, I said. The hospital's legal team would love to meet her. They're very interested in cases of financial abuse. You wouldn't dare, Amanda hissed. Try me. I ended the call and looked up. Sarah was smirking as she adjusted my medication. Remind me never to get on your bad side, she joked. I smiled and leaned back against my pillows. Amanda thought she had won, but she was about to learn a tough lesson. Sometimes the weakest-looking person is actually the strongest. My phone buzzed again. A text from Amanda. You're making a big mistake. Family should stick together. I chuckled, thinking about all the proof my lawyer had gathered, all the hospital staff who had overheard Amanda's cruel comments. She had no idea what was coming. You're right, I texted back. Family should stick together. Remember that when you explained why you tried to steal from me. Then I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and saved my energy. Amanda thought she had won when she saw that money transfer. But she was about to find out that I had been planning for this moment all along. The afternoon sun streamed through my hospital window. In a few hours, Amanda would show up, probably with some excuse. But it didn't matter. I had proof, witnesses, and a plan. Sarah walked back in with my evening meds. David just called. They're on their way. I nodded, feeling stronger than I had in weeks. Sometimes the best medicine isn't what's in an IV drip. It's watching justice happen exactly as you planned. The sharp clicking of high heels echoed in the hallway before Amanda even stepped into my hospital room. She burst in like she owned the place, with David right behind her, looking both worried and embarrassed. What did you do? She demanded, waving her phone at me. The transfer was reversed, and now I'm getting emails about fraud investigations. I took my time adjusting my hospital bed to sit up, letting her stew in her anger. Sarah, my nurse, stood by the door, clipboard in hand, officially checking my vitals. But really, she was here as a witness. We planned this part carefully. I didn't do anything, Amanda, I said calmly. The system worked exactly as it should to stop theft. It's not theft, she snapped. I'm a beneficiary of that trust, too. Of your half, I reminded her, not all of it, and certainly not while telling me I'm too sick to need it anyway. David stepped forward, his face pale. Did you really say that to her, Amanda? Oh, she said much worse. I reached for my laptop. Would you like to hear the recordings? Amanda's face went from red with anger to pale with fear. What recordings? I turned the laptop toward them, showing audio files with date and timestamps. Hospital policy, I explained. All rooms have recording devices for patient safety, especially when there's a risk of abuse. You recorded me. Amanda's voice cracked. That's illegal. Sarah stepped forward, calm but firm. Actually, it's standard hospital procedure. There are signs on every door. She pointed to one near the entrance, which Amanda had clearly ignored. I pressed play. Amanda's voice filled the room. Just die already. That money is wasted on you. The date showed it was from 2 weeks ago, during a visit where she had pretended to be concerned about me. David stumbled back, dropping into a chair. My God, Amanda. She's lying. She edited that. Amanda cried. The hospital has the original files, Sarah said. No one can change them. I pulled up another document. And then there's this, your loan application from yesterday, where you used the stolen money as proof of assets. Were you planning to buy that beach house you've been talking about? Amanda's expensive handbag slipped off her shoulder and hit the floor. How did you? The trust committee checks for suspicious financial activity, I said. Did you really think I wouldn't plan ahead? Amanda's face twisted in frustration. What future? She spat. You're dying anyway. That money could actually be useful instead of paying for treatments that probably won't even work. The room went silent. Even Amanda looked shocked at what she had just said. David stood up slowly, moving away from her. Sarah, I said quietly, please make a note of that statement in my patient record. The legal team asked for documentation of any threats. Already done, Sarah replied, tapping her tablet. This is ridiculous. Amanda tried to backtrack. I was just being practical. The family needs. The family needs? I cut her off. You mean how you've been lying to everyone? Saying I'm too sick to handle my own affairs? How you planned this for months, thinking I'd be too weak to stop you? I pulled up another set of emails, ones where Amanda told family members she was taking control of the trust because I wouldn't be around much longer. You really thought no one would show me these? I asked, watching panic creep into her face. I was protecting the family assets, she insisted, but her voice shook. No, David said firmly. You were stealing from my wife while she fought for her life. What kind of person does that? Amanda turned to him desperately. She turned you against me, your own sister. You turned me against you, he said. I just didn't see it until now. I took out one last document. The trust committee is meeting tomorrow. Given the evidence, your unauthorized transfer, the threats, the fraudulent loan, they're recommending that you be completely removed as a beneficiary. You can't do that. Amanda took a shaky step back. Grandfather left that money to both of us. With conditions, I reminded her, one of which says that trying to harm or steal from another beneficiary is grounds for removal. Sarah cleared her throat. Miss Parker needs her rest, and hospital security is waiting outside if needed. Amanda looked around wildly, realizing she was trapped. This isn't over, she snarled, grabbing her fallen bag. You think you're so clever, lying there, playing the victim. Security, Sarah called out. Two uniformed officers appeared in the doorway. Ms. Amanda Wilson was just leaving. Please escort her out of the building. As Amanda was led away, her angry protests faded down the hall. David stayed behind, looking heartbroken. Liv, I'm so sorry, he whispered. I had no idea. I know, I said, squeezing his hand. That's why I didn't tell you my plan. You needed to see it for yourself. He swallowed hard, guilt in his eyes. The things she said about you dying. Hey, I gave him a small smile. I'm not going anywhere. The treatment is working. My numbers are improving every week. Sarah nodded. She's one of our strongest patients, and now that the stress of this situation is over. My phone buzzed. An email from the trust committee confirmed tomorrow's emergency meeting. Amanda's fate would be decided soon, but I already knew the real damage was done. Some family bonds, once broken by greed, can never be fixed. What happens now? David asked. I glanced at my laptop, at all the proof I had gathered over months of chemo and hospital stays. Now, I said, now we let justice take its course. And maybe, just maybe, Amanda will finally learn that being family doesn't mean you get to destroy someone else's life. Sarah adjusted my IV as the sun set outside, casting a warm glow over the room. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, I had one. Amanda had underestimated me. She thought illness made me weak, but she was about to learn a hard lesson. Sometimes the sickest person in the room is also the smartest. The trust committee held their meeting online, so I joined from my hospital room. David had brought me a large tablet, and I watched Amanda's face as they showed one piece of evidence after another. Ms. Wilson, the committee chair said firmly, can you explain why you tried to move the entire $300,000 trust fund into your personal account? I was protecting the family's interests, Amanda said quickly, but her usual confidence was fading. Olivia is very sick, and I thought. You thought what? Another member interrupted. That her illness gave you the right to take her money? We have recordings of you saying you were just waiting for her to die. Amanda's face turned pale as they played the recordings. Her eyes darted around, looking for a way out. But there was none. The facts are clear, the chair continued. You tried multiple times to take the full trust, made threats against a vulnerable patient, and submitted a fraudulent loan application using money that wasn't yours. She's manipulating everything. Amanda shouted, growing desperate. She just wants to cut me out of my inheritance. The chair's voice turned cold. Ms. Wilson, the hospital's security system is tamper-proof. Are you accusing a major hospital of fraud? David sat beside me, holding my hand as we watched his sister fall apart. Sarah stood nearby, ready in case the stress affected my health. The committee made their decision. Amanda was officially removed from the trust. Her share was frozen while authorities investigated possible criminal charges. The look on her face showed the exact moment she realized what she had lost. Not just the money, but her reputation, her credibility, and her family's trust. "This is all your fault," she screamed at me through the screen. "You set me up." "No, Amanda," I said calmly. "You did this to yourself. I just made sure everyone saw the truth." When the meeting ended, my phone buzzed with messages from family members. Many had watched the hearing and now knew what Amanda was really like. The perfect image she had built for years had collapsed in less than an hour. "The police want to question her about the loan," David said, reading an email. "They're calling it attempted bank fraud." I squeezed his hand. "I'm sorry it had to come to this." He shook his head. "Don't be. I needed to see who my sister really was." A week later, I got amazing news. My latest test results showed the treatment was working even better than expected. When Sarah told me, I couldn't help but think about how wrong Amanda had been. "Your recovery is impressive," Sarah said with a smile. "Guess all that stress relief helped." I later heard Amanda had run off to another state, hiding at a friend's house. The loan company was pressing charges, and family members were coming forward with stories of money she had borrowed and never paid back. David visited me every day, sharing updates with our family about my improving health. It was his way of undoing all the lies Amanda had told. 3 months later, I was discharged from the hospital. Standing outside in the sunlight, I felt different, stronger, not just physically, but mentally. Amanda had thought my illness made me weak. She never realized that battling cancer had given me the greatest lesson of all: never underestimate someone who refuses to give up. The trust fund was now fully in my name, safe from Amanda's greed. But I had gained something even more important: clarity. I now knew exactly who deserved to be part of my future. As David drove us home, I got one last email from Amanda. It was short and bitter. "I hope you're happy. You ruined everything." I thought about replying but knew she would never understand. She had destroyed herself. I simply deleted the email and turned to David. "Let's talk about our future," I said. "I think it's time we finally take that vacation." He smiled, knowing exactly what I meant. We were moving on, leaving Amanda's darkness behind. Sarah had said it best on my last day in the hospital. "People think illness makes you weak, but they forget. Those who fight the hardest battles become the strongest." Amanda had looked at me and seen someone fragile. She never realized that I had become unbreakable. "Family shares everything, Anna. Don't be so selfish." Sarah's voice dripped with false sweetness through the speakerphone. My grip on the phone tightened as I stared at my empty jewelry box, my hands trembling. Every velvet compartment, once filled with pieces carrying decades of love, tradition, and memories, was now barren. My grandmother's sapphire necklace, my mother's pearl earrings, the diamond bracelet my husband gave me on our first anniversary, gone. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Some of those pieces were insured, Sarah," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "And some were family heirlooms." "Exactly," she chirped. "Family heirlooms should be shared with family. And since I'm family now, I have just as much right to them as you do. Besides, you never even wear half of those pieces." I thought about the security camera I had discreetly installed in my bedroom 6 months ago, after noticing little things vanishing every time Sarah visited. The same camera that had recorded every second of her rifling through my jewelry box 2 days ago. "Where are they now?" I asked, my voice deceptively calm as I downloaded the footage onto my laptop. Sarah laughed. "Oh, don't worry about that. They're safe with me. I'm actually wearing Mom's pearl earrings right now. They look so much better on me than they ever did on you." My mother's pearls. The last gift she gave me before cancer stole her from me 3 years ago. A flash of grief cut through the anger, but I steeled myself against it. Those weren't yours to take, Sarah, I said, my tone like ice. Return everything by tomorrow, or I'll take action. Her saccharine act cracked, replaced by irritation. Action? Against family? James would never forgive you for that. James, my husband of 5 years. The man who had spent his life making excuses for his younger sister, blind to the manipulative games she played. Ever since their parents died in a car crash when they were teenagers, he had shouldered a misplaced sense of responsibility for her, never seeing her for who she truly was. We'll see about that, I replied, ending the call. I exhaled slowly and clicked play on the security footage. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. Right when Sarah knew I'd be giving a presentation at my medical conference. She entered my bedroom with the spare key James had insisted she keep for emergencies. For nearly an hour, she sifted through my jewelry box with meticulous care, selecting each piece with the precision of a thief who had done this before. She even paused to admire herself in my mirror, tilting her head as she fastened my mother's pearls around her neck, smiling like she'd won. A notification lit up my phone. James. Sarah says you're being difficult about sharing some jewelry. Come on, honey, you know how much she admires your collection. Can't you be generous with family? I stared at his message, that familiar wave of frustration rising. He still didn't see it. He never did. I forwarded him the security footage. Then I typed, your sister didn't borrow a few pieces. She emptied my entire jewelry box, including mom's pearls and grandma's sapphires. We're talking about $95,000 worth of jewelry, James, some of which can never be replaced. His response was instant. Are you sure? Sarah wouldn't do that. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Megan, my insurance investigator. Anna? Her voice was sharp. We just got a hit. Someone matching Sarah's description tried to sell your grandmother's sapphire necklace at Essex Jewelry Buyers this morning. My breath caught. Please tell me they didn't buy it. They didn't. The owner flagged it in our registry and stalled her while his assistant called me. We have security footage. I clenched my jaw. She wasn't just taking my jewelry, she was selling it. Megan continued. We ran checks on other shops in the area. 3 other pieces matching your collection's description were sold in the last 2 days. We're pulling footage now. I exhaled, my mind racing. James needed to see this. Another text from him. Just talked to Sarah. She says she was only borrowing them to show her friends. She's returning everything tomorrow. Can we just drop this? I typed back. Ask her about Essex Jewelry Buyers this morning. Ask her why she tried to sell Grandma's necklace. Silence. Then, 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Sarah standing there, her face flushed with anger, still wearing my mother's pearls. You had no right to put cameras in your bedroom, she spat, her voice sharp with panic. And now you're making up lies about me selling anything. I was just borrowing them. James stood behind her, his face drawn, his hands shoved into his pockets. But this time, something was different. This time, there was doubt in his eyes. I met Sarah's glare with steady resolve. Take off my mother's pearls and tell the truth. The insurance investigator already has footage of you at multiple pawn shops. This isn't going away. Her hand flew to the pearls, clutching them possessively. These look better on me anyway, she snapped. You don't deserve these things. You're not even blood family. And there it was. The truth behind her mask of sugary sweetness. I had never been family to her. Without breaking eye contact, I lifted my phone and dialed Megan. I put it on speaker. It's time, I said simply. Sarah's face drained of color. She had spent her life slipping out of consequences, twisting people's perceptions to her advantage. But this time, she had crossed a line even her brother couldn't fix. The next hour played out like a scene from a crime thriller. Megan arrived with 2 police officers, her tablet loaded with irrefutable proof of Sarah's actions over the past 2 days. My bedroom security footage looped on screen, showing Sarah methodically emptying my jewelry box, trying on my heirlooms, and slipping them into her designer handbag like they were hers to take. Mrs. Walker, Megan addressed Sarah, her voice clipped and professional. We have footage of you attempting to sell this insured necklace at Essex Jewelry Buyers this morning. She turned the screen towards Sarah, displaying a clear image of my grandmother's sapphire necklace. Additionally, we've confirmed sales of 3 other pieces at pawn shops across the city. Sarah's breath hitched. Those shops weren't supposed to keep records, she muttered, then froze, realizing her mistake. James, who had been standing silently near the door, paled. His expression was a mixture of disbelief and horror, like a man who just realized he'd spent years living in a carefully woven illusion. Weren't supposed to keep records, he repeated, his voice hollow. Sarah, what have you done? I watched as years of denial crumbled in his eyes. He had spent a lifetime making excuses for his sister, choosing to see only what he wanted. But now, faced with undeniable proof, there was nowhere left for him to hide. Show me the pawn shop footage, he said hoarsely. Megan didn't hesitate. She pulled up the videos and there was Sarah, clear as day, standing at 3 different pawn shop counters. In each clip, she confidently displayed my jewelry, haggled over the prices, and walked out counting cash. The timestamps confirmed she'd have sold the pieces within hours of stealing them. Total amount received: $27,400, Megan stated. Well below their actual worth, of course. We need to know where the rest of the collection is. Sarah's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. Her fingers clutched at my mother's pearls, the same ones she had refused to remove. I needed the money, she blurted. My credit cards are maxed out, and I have obligations. James stepped toward her, his voice razor sharp. Obligations? What kind of obligations? She refused to meet his gaze. It doesn't matter, she snapped. Anna has insurance, doesn't she? She'll get the money back. I don't see why everyone's making such a big deal out of this. One of the officers stepped forward. Mrs. Walker, selling stolen property is a serious offense. The insurance company has filed a formal complaint. You'll need to come down to the station to make a statement. Sarah whipped around, wild-eyed. James, are you seriously going to let them do this to me? She screeched. I'm your sister. James flinched at the words, but his face remained unreadable. Where's the rest of the jewelry, Sarah? His voice was tired, defeated. For the first time that night, Sarah hesitated. It's in my storage unit, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Unit 247 at Safekeep Storage. The key is in my purse. The officers exchanged glances. One stepped forward to escort Sarah to the station while the other left with Megan to retrieve what remained of my collection. As Sarah was led to the door, she twisted to face me, her expression a mix of desperation and venom. This is your fault, she spat. If you hadn't been so selfish, if you had just shared, like family is supposed to. Family doesn't steal from family, I interrupted, my voice calm, unwavering. Family doesn't sell heirlooms for quick cash. You did this to yourself, Sarah. She opened her mouth to argue, but the officer pulled her toward the waiting patrol car. And just like that, she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. James sat heavily on the couch, rubbing a hand down his face. I should have seen it, he murmured. All these years, the little things that went missing, the way she always needed money. I just didn't want to believe it. I sank down beside him, not touching, just present. She's your sister, I said softly. You wanted to protect her. James let out a hollow laugh. But I should have protected you too, he admitted, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. All those times I told you to let things go, to be more understanding. I was wrong. I was so wrong, Anna. My phone buzzed. A text from Megan. Retrieve the remaining jewelry. Everything accounted for except what was sold. We'll need you to verify the inventory tomorrow. I showed the message to James. He nodded, exhaling slowly. I'll come with you, he said, and I'll make sure Sarah pays back every cent she got from those pawn shops. It's not about the money, I murmured. Some of those pieces, they're irreplaceable. My mom's pearls. I hesitated, my voice thickening. She gave them to me right before she died. James reached for my hand, squeezing gently. I know, and I'll get them back. His jaw clenched. She's going to face consequences this time. For once in her life. As if on cue, my phone rang. The police station. Mrs. Chen, your sister-in-law is refusing to remove a pair of pearl earrings, claiming they were a gift from your husband. We need Mr. Walker to come down and clarify the situation. James stood, his face hardening with determination. I'll handle this, he said. It's time I stopped enabling her. I watched him go, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. Maybe after everything, this was the wake-up call he needed. My phone buzzed again, this time from Sarah's number. "You've ruined everything. Happy now. James will never forgive you for this." I stared at the message, then slowly locked my phone. Instead of responding, I walked to my bedroom, where my open jewelry box still sat on the dresser, its velvet compartments empty. Each missing piece represented more than just stolen possessions. They were fragments of my past, connections to the people I had loved and lost. Sarah hadn't just stolen jewelry. She had tried to steal my history, my family's legacy. And for what? Quick cash to cover her debts. The insurance would compensate me for the monetary value of the pawned pieces, but some things couldn't be replaced. Some betrayals cut too deep to be forgotten. I reached out and closed the jewelry box, letting the latch click softly into place. Tomorrow would bring police reports, insurance claims, legal proceedings. But for tonight, the truth was finally out. And sometimes that was the first step toward healing. 6 months after Sarah's theft, I sat in a hushed courtroom, watching as the judge prepared to deliver her sentence. Sarah had rejected every plea deal, clinging to the belief that being family would somehow shield her from consequences. It didn't. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage from my bedroom, records of her pawnshop transactions, and most damning of all, a recorded phone call where she sneered that family shares everything while actively trying to sell my heirlooms. The judge's voice was firm, unwavering. 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, full restitution for the pawned pieces, and a restraining order preventing you from entering the victim's home. Sarah stood frozen in her designer outfit, likely paid for with stolen money, her carefully rehearsed tears failing to sway anyone. Beside me, James sat motionless, his face a mask of quiet resignation. The past months had forced him to confront painful truths about his sister, about himself. And yet, when Sarah had called him, again and again, pleading, bargaining, he had stood firm. "The defendant will surrender any remaining stolen jewelry immediately," the judge continued, "including the pearl earrings she is currently wearing." Sarah's hand flew to my mother's pearls, her fingers curling around them like they might disappear. She had clung to them even after her arrest, insisting they were safer with her. A bailiff stepped forward, hand extended. For a moment, I thought she might refuse. Then James stood. His voice was low, steady. "Sarah, give them back." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to argue, but something in James's face stopped her. With trembling fingers, she unclasped the pearls and handed them over. The bailiff placed them in my waiting palm, and as their cool weight settled against my skin, I felt the sting of unshed tears. Mom's last gift was finally home. Outside the courthouse, Sarah made one last attempt. "Anna." Her voice was raw, desperate. "Please, we're family. You don't have to go through with this." I met her gaze, steady and unyielding. "The charges weren't dropped because this wasn't just about me," I said. "It was about trust, about consequences, about respect, things you still don't understand." James's arm slid around my shoulders, not just a gesture of comfort, but a choice, a declaration. Sarah's face twisted as she looked at him. "You've turned him against me." "No, Sarah," James said quietly. "Your actions did that. Get help. Real help. Maybe one day we can rebuild. But not until you understand what you've done." We turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone with her court-appointed lawyer. The spring air felt lighter somehow, as if the storm had finally passed. Back home, I carefully returned each recovered piece to my jewelry box. Some heirlooms had been salvaged, but the pawned pieces were gone forever. The insurance money sat untouched in our account, a hollow replacement for what had been lost. James lingered in the doorway, watching as I arranged the last of my treasures. Then hesitantly, he stepped forward and pulled a small box from his pocket. "I found this," he said softly. Inside lay a delicate gold chain with a heart-shaped locket. My breath caught. Mom's locket. I thought it was lost in the move years ago. James swallowed hard. Sarah had it. His voice was heavy with guilt. "I found it in her apartment while helping her pack after the arrest. She must have taken it back then." I ran my thumb over the worn gold surface, then clicked it open. Inside were tiny photos of my parents on their wedding day, one of the last keepsakes I had of them together. Tears blurred my vision. "Thank you." James exhaled slowly. I should have protected you. He sat beside me, his voice raw. All those years of making excuses for her, of telling you to be more understanding. I was wrong. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his presence. We can't change the past, I murmured, but we can learn from it. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Unexpected. Inside was a letter from Sarah's court-appointed counselor. She had started therapy, addressing her kleptomania, confronting her entitlement. It would be a long road, but at least it was a beginning. Now my jewelry box sits on my dresser, no longer just a collection of valuable trinkets, but a testament to something greater. A reminder that love doesn't mean blind forgiveness. That family isn't a free pass for betrayal. That's sometimes the hardest but most loving thing you can do, is let someone face the consequences of their actions. James and I are stronger for it. Mom's pearls catch the light as I fasten them around my neck, their weight familiar and comforting. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth protecting. And sometimes the most valuable gift you can give someone is the chance to change, even if they have to learn the hard way.